Guys, welcome out to Level Up Your Leadership with me, John Barrett, where I am going to give you leadership lessons in a visual way to help you get better in what you do. Today, I want to talk about leading with questions. Now, this is totally different than the traditional model of leadership. The traditional model of leadership is leading with answers, but what I want to teach you in this lesson is a whole different way. It's a whole different model that is so much more effective. In fact, it's what highly successful leaders do. They lead totally different than average or even good leaders, but great leaders lead with questions. And I want to unpack what that means. So when we think about the traditional model of leadership, you've got the leader up here, whoever that may be, and you have the team down here. And the team is there with the leader, and all these people are either in a meeting or whatever it is in terms of the communication, however it works. And what the traditional model of leadership is that answers are supposed to come down and questions are supposed to come up to the leader. So it looks something like this. A leader says, okay, here's what we're going to be doing today. Here's how it works. Here's what needs to happen. Any questions, team? And then the team is supposed to ask any questions that they have. Clarifying questions of, yeah, boss, when do you want that done by? Yeah, boss, how do you want this to look? Boss, what do you want us to do about this in this situation? When we're faced with this, what decision do you want to make? And you get the point. Answers are supposed to come down. The leader is supposed to know everything. They're supposed to give all kinds of clarity for everybody's job, give all the marching orders for the day. And then questions are supposed to come up from the team. Now, this is the most traditional form of leadership that we think, oh yeah, that's how it's supposed to work. In fact, we pride ourselves sometimes on a great leader has all the answers. They know everything. And we pride ourselves on this. If the team doesn't really have any questions, that's probably a good sign that we answered everything and anticipated everything. All good, right? No. This is a horrible form of leadership that doesn't develop your team. It puts all kinds of emphasis on you knowing everything and always having an answer for everything that's going on, giving everybody their marching orders. That's exhausting for a leader. You're never going to sustain yourself, especially if you've got a large team where you've got even more layers of people here that you're trying to direct. It's not going to happen. Listen, when we do this model, we're not developing our team, we're just directing them. And leadership is more about developing than it is directing. See, a leader isn't there just to tell everybody what to do and direct everybody on their job. Again, it's unsustainable if you're the leader. And it doesn't develop your team to be self-thinkers and problem solvers and to engage into the process and to actually be a part. There's that old statement that says people support what they help create. If they're not part of creating this project and the deadlines and the problems that need to be solved, and they don't have some say in that and some skin in the game, then you're never going to develop them. And this whole system is totally dependent on you leading your team. And if you're gone, if you disappear for whatever reason, they don't know what to do because they are reliant on you to always have an answer for everything and for them just to ask you questions. Now, let me show you a whole different model of leadership. Let me kind of flip the script here, flip the scales, and let me tell you about how effective leadership works. Now, it's the same concept in the sense that you've got a team and you're leading the team, but you lead with questions. Here's what I mean by that. Questions go down and answers are supposed to come up from the team. That's how the most effective form of leadership works. Questions go down, answers come up. What do I mean by that? When you're in a meeting as a leader with your team, you're not there just to give all the answers. You're there to ask questions. And the better that you can ask questions, the more you're going to develop your team and get them engaged in the process. So it looks like this. When you sit down and you're working on Project X, whatever that may be, okay? Project X. You sit down with your team and say, where are we at with Project X? Question. They're supposed to give an answer. Then you say, okay, what's our deadline to get this done by? Well, we can get it done by the 12th, boss. That's what we can do. And instead of you saying, no, that's unacceptable, get it done by the 10th. You don't do that because that's leading with answers. Here's what you do. You engage your team to develop them and you say, a question. Why do we say the 12th? Why are we at the 12th? Well, because we've got some production that needs to happen, and in order for that to take place, we need about 2 weeks for that to make it work. So then you lead with questions. Well, what would happen if we moved it up to the 10th? What would have to change? What would have to take place in order for that to happen? Well, answers come up. Well, boss, we'd have to do this, we'd have to do that. I guess we'd have to amp up our production. We'd probably have to change this in the process. Then you say, okay, well, what is it going to take to change? How do we make that happen? How do we get that change done? What are the limitations? What are the opportunities? What can we do to make that happen? And then when somebody else comes over here and says, well, boss, here's where we're at with that. Well, tell me, what can we do in order to find out what our limits are? What are you going to do to fix that? And when your team brings up problems and they say, well, boss, what do you want us to do about that? And they ask a question, remember, don't be tempted just to give the answer, but to answer that with a question and say, well, what do you think we should do? When do you think we can get it done by? What would you do to solve this problem? And you engage them. And listen, they may push back a little bit and say, boss, I just need you to give me an answer. But don't do it. Don't take the bait. You lead with questions because you develop your team. Listen, when I sit down with great leaders and I sit in their meetings, I can tell you this. They all lead with questions, not answers. And that team is good at coming up with solutions, and it engages them into the process, and it helps you to hold them accountable for what they created. When someone says, okay, we're going to get it done by the 10th, that's when we can do it. You say, okay, I'm going to hold you to that and make sure that we do that. What are some things that might hold us back from getting that done? Well, I think there would be this, this, and this. Okay, well, how are we going to mitigate that? What are we going to do to get in front of that? How are we going to solve that problem? Who do we need to communicate? When do you need to communicate with them by? What are you going to do when you communicate? How are you going to explain it to them? How are you going to cast that vision? You get the point. You're leading with questions. I'm telling you, if you'll flip the scale, if you'll flip the model and do this, you're going to start developing your team. You're going to start seeing a team that is growing, developing. They're going to be able to problem solve. They're going to be able to get things done. And when you're not there for whatever reason, you're on vacation, you're busy in a meeting, whatever it is, they know that you're just going to drive them with questions anyway, and that they've got to come up with answers, and they've got to be quick on their feet and come and bring those answers to you. So it enables them to move faster, and it empowers them to make decisions and get things done. That doesn't mean that you never have an answer. I'm not advocating that you never give an answer. I get that. But you want to limit your answers and you want to maximize your questions. When you do that, guys, you're going to lead with questions. You're going to be more effective in all you do. Now, if you go over to johnbarrettleadership.com, I've got all kinds of resources about asking questions and how you do that. I've got some podcasts on that. I've got some different articles on that. I've even written a book called Leadology where I unpack one chapter in there just all about leading with questions and give you all the different models. There's actually 4 different kinds. I've just given you 2, but these are the most important ones for now. But go to johnbarrettleadership.com, check out all those resources so that you can level up in your leadership.
Reach out to us today so we can help take you and your team to the next level.